Tucked away in a corner of the Dubois County Museum is a little piece of nostalgia. A train set has been in the museum since it opened in 2004, but not everybody knows about it, and calling it a simple train set would belittle its size, the work people have put into it, and the memories it evokes for those who come to admire. Les Lowry and John Depot are two of the men who have donated a lot of their time to the collection.
I got started when I was just a kid. I had a neighbor bring me over to his house, and he had a layout in his basement, and I got all excited about it. And that Christmas I asked for a model railroad, and my parents bought me a train, and it's been trains ever since. I started with a 4x8, it grew to 2 4x8s, and then we have this thing. It's over 50 feet long. So
you still have that first train?
Actually, I have one real close to it. I don't have the first one, but I have one that's very close to it. It was an old Tyco engine that was a kit that I built the engine itself and it probably cost like $30, and I probably put like $70 of different things into it, like smoking units, directional lights, and things.
I started in the early 70s doing some trains, and of course my son came along and we started, and he kind of liked them, and we ran them in a spare bedroom at home for a while, and before long, we wanted more space and put more things out, and it just grew. And you kept adding to your collection, and it was left in boxes, and you didn't get it out all the time and everything. So like in the place over in here at the museum, we can get the neat old things out and let them run and play and have a good time. We kind of followed kind of permanent loan type thing that we like to do, and we bring guys can bring engines in and run them and take them back home and everything. But this is kind of fun where you get a layout started, and it's like I said, it's a 3-4 year project, especially one of this size, this length, that we can get out here and play with and work on. As said, play with too, as we play with them and working on them, are work in progress. And of course we build all the tables and put the stuff around, so we kind of everything was kind of hand done with, as everything goes, just, basically us doing it.
Depot says he has been volunteering at the museum for the last few months.
Oh, I met one of the guys that volunteer in a hobby shop, that volunteer here, and he invited me to come up, and I came up and saw how much work they need done and help they need, and that's what I want to do. That's something that I feel called to do, is work on this to get this so Jasper has a real nice layout to look at. One thing we can use is expertise and volunteers, and we just need help in that direction. Me coming up once a week, things happen very slowly. With some of the volunteers, it's just hard to get things done in a speedy fashion. That's why it takes so long to get all this.
Depot is from Evansville, but says Jasper provides something the big city doesn't.
Most of your bigger cities have clubs that actually have buildings in them that have layouts that you can run your layout on. I personally don't have a layout, so I have to belong to something to run my trains like this. And Evansville has clubs, but they don't have anything like this, where people can come and bring their engines and run them. They can come in and work on layouts if they want, volunteer to do that kind of stuff. I just haven't been able to find that down in Evansville. I belong to the San Antonio. When I lived in San Antonio, I belonged to San Antonio Model Railroaders Association. It was a club down there. I would always recommend someone if they want to get into this hobby, is to join a club. You'll learn so much more joining a club than doing it on your own. You always make the mistakes that everybody else has made, and by having other people to talk to, you can avoid some of those mistakes. Of course, what really helped was having children myself. As I would work on my layout, my kids would bring a chair over, and they would turn the back and lay it up against the layout, and then they would climb up on it and watch for hours while I did a wiring or laid track or what have you. It's just fantastic. It brings the family together.
Lots of kids love trains, and a lot of kids come out here to see the trains. They bring some school bus loads of kids in from different counties besides Dubois County also. And, of course, with the train depot downtown and the real train, the Spirit of Jasper train running. So it's, you get into, this is one of those great hobbies that, if a father gets his son a train, or dad's already had a train for a while, it's a fun hobby for, the whole family, especially the son, the father, maybe, the grandpa. You get into it and, it stays with you for life. And most of the trains, you'll keep them running. You can keep them 40, 50 years.
I have to admit, one of my things that I like the most is watching people. And while they're looking at the trains, to see the kids get up, they'll climb up on the podium back there, and they'll see these trains go by. Their eyes get that big when they see them, and they get all excited. They ask a lot of questions. And the other is the older people. They'll come in, and of course they're quieter, and you can see them reminiscing the past of where they left their husbands go off to war, or especially when I'm running passenger service, because it's always the steam era around World War II.
Here's an Army base we put on a train set, because we do have military train over here going around in different cars. But since Jasper has a headquarters company here out of the National Guard, and has for many years, I thought, well, that's a nice little thing to add on to the thing, because there's a lot of men or civilian soldiers, let's put it that way, through here, and of course they've all been in Iraq a couple of times, so it's nice to add that in, incorporate it into our train area like that. So we have, we got a lot of tanks and trucks and things like that.
Besides the Army base, there are plenty of other architectural features on the layout as well.
Basically, of course, we had the drive-in theater out there on the south end of Jasper, 231, and Kentucky Fried Chicken was here in 2 locations in Jasper for, a while back. So, and, the warehouses and some of the factories that we had. So we it's just, it's kind of what's going on in the county and of prior years before, and just kind of fun stuff building up new parts of the city on that. So there's always something going on.
The architecture in model railroading is very interesting. I'm glad you brought that up. There are people, and and we had them in our club, that would actually take a building like you have this beautiful church I see in Jasper, or you have your town hall, and he would take a picture of it with you standing there to give it some kind of dimension, and they would actually build that building to scale by using parts and things. And if you get a camera close enough, you almost think it's the real thing. So the kind of architecture or buildings I like are the old style, like you have here, or you see the church there back actually at the turn of the century, which would be the 1920s.
One thing Lowry and Depot emphasized was the importance of locomotives in American history.
The steam era is actually the thing that built America. It was the one where finally the farmer could get its crops or its goods to a place to sell it. Prior to the steam engine, what was actually used was canals, and they used canal boats. The Pennsylvania Railroad was actually started as a Pennsylvania Canal Company. The B&O was the first railroad, and it was a canal company, but they went to steam because if you think about it, the very time that the farmer wants to take his goods to market is when the canals are all frozen over. And the steam engine, of course, is not hampered by weather at all. So it was the very thing that built this country, is the light steam engine you see running right there.
You'd love to see a train going down. If you're traveling in a car and along the side of the highway, here's a track, and here comes a train by. I mean, everybody likes to look over and see whether it's a coal train, going through hauling to Indianapolis or somewhere, or the power plants at Rockport or somewhere. And then, of course, you've got the grain trains that run through here a lot, the cars. So with all the corn and feed and things that's being made around here for the chickens and turkeys and all that. So, you're always going to see grain cars running through here and everything. So I think it's just kind of neat to see those. And, of course, some of the graffiti on the side of those real cars is out of this world. It's beautiful. There's some good artists out there. So, but, it's just nice. And like I said, with the passenger train that's here in Jasper now, to get that thing going again. And I'm hoping everybody's going to at least want to ride that, once anyway, so you find out how much fun it is. When people get down there and see that little old switcher engine, the Spirit of Jasper yellow, and the cars that were, if you'd have seen those railroad cars when they first got here from Crane, they were pretty well, out in the field, looked like for about 40 years, broken windows, doors open, And you thought, oh my goodness, these things will never look, good. And by God, now they look just like they're brand new, right off the exterior, and the interior just is fantastic. So it's a great train ride.
Lowry says the museum has an impressive set of trains, and his passion for the hobby is evident.
I would say we probably have at least 40 different engines over here. A lot of times we'll have about 11, 12 trains running at one time. And the fun is you don't hit one another. That's the big thing. We hope we don't hit one another. And, so you switch engines around. We have military trains. We have circus trains. We've got, of course, the freight trains. We got some passenger trains. We like to use the Monon line as one of them. And, of course, the Alaskan Passenger Railroad up there. We have some of their trains here. And just different kind of freight trains, individual trains, whatever. It's fun to get different ones out there and run them. But we like to run a lot of, and we try to get some Norfolk Southerns and some Monon. Of course, Monon was a train that ran from Kentucky up to Chicago through Indiana, and their car colors, it's really funny. Over the time, they use a couple of color combinations. They use a black and gold engine in cars like that, and they use a red and silver type, light colored silver, and those basically stood for Purdue and Indiana. That's their train colors, on their thing. So there's some passenger cars, and of course you get up French Lick, you see a lot of Monon cars up there, the real old ones that they used to run on that line. So, but we're trying to build a small town here and countryside and tracks. One of my favorites is the Monon passenger car line, which is just after that caboose. You can see the two engines sitting there, the Monon engines, like there. And then we've got about probably 8 or 9 passenger cars for those, and of course the dining car and the baggage car and mail car like that. People, have the favorite train, is Pennsylvania or the Thunder Chief Santa Fe or something, and here's Monon. It was an Indiana line and everything, so you don't hear of it too much outside Indiana. And so I kind of like that special because people say, wow, they've never heard of this or whatever it is, but it was popular through here. So right. So I kind of like some of those trains that that you have, but nobody else really has. So not that many out there. Let's put it that way, across the country.
I probably have about 30 engines myself. I like the steam air. The steam engines primarily are the ones I do. I also do Pennsylvania, as you heard Les talking about the Moon. I do Pennsylvania, so all my trains will have Pennsylvania usually on the side of them, and my passenger cars are Pennsylvania. But I like the steam air, especially the light steam, which is early 1800s, beginning of 1900s type thing.
Both gentlemen have a vast knowledge of train-related history.
The DeWitt being one of the very first steam engines, and the yellow one, it went at a breakneck speed of around 17 miles an hour, and people were afraid of it because it went so fast, and of course they got covered in soot and smoke and everything else. But that was the beginning of it. Then you go to the steam air that I like, which is what we call light steam, which is that Civil War train with a balloon stack. That is, you can always tell that's a wood-burning engine because it has that balloon stack. They would make that so the cinders wouldn't catch forest fires start forest fires or field fires, things like that. That particular type of engine actually was participated in the first battle of the Civil War, which was the Battle of Bull Run. If you're Confederate, you call it the Battle of Manassas. The North was actually winning that battle, but the Confederates brought in reinforcements on a train very much like that one. And because the reinforcements arrived, that battle was won by the Confederates. Now, they didn't know how to use trains in that war very well, but they learned later on very well how to use them. And that was one of the targets that General Sherman went after, was the railroads in the South, because you could make the guns and you could grow the crops, but if you can't get them to the troops, it didn't do any good.
In fact, one gets the feeling these two could talk about trains
from supplying the Army
all day long.
They have other more modern engines. That 440 was actually used all the way up to the end of the steam age. They modernized it, and they'd make it run on coal or oil, and it wouldn't have that balloon stack, and it would look more like a modern engine. But that wheel arrangement was very, very popular. The Pennsylvania even made one called a T1, which was two of those. It was it actually had two steam cylinders for the drive gears on it, and it was called a 4-4-4-4. And it had two sets of drivers on it, and it was for passenger service. It was very fast. They only made about 58 of them. This is my volunteer work. I've been in model railroading since the 50s, and it's just a fun thing to do. Everybody involved enjoys it. You just take a niche out of what you want to do, and you pursue it. Some people only do scenery. Some people like to just build buildings, replica buildings, or some people will do just the model railroad, just the trains themselves. And that I'm kind of a jack of all trades, a master of none. I do it all.
Lowry says that even though times are changing from the days where trains frequently roamed the plains of America, the best place to find model trains is without the use of technology.
Well, you just, internet for part of it. And a lot of it's just, as you're going, you're in some other city or something or other town, and you look for the old hobby store. The fella that Grandpa was a hobbyist, and his dad took it over, and his grandson's in there now or something like that. So where you'll find a lot of the older items, and they might not be out on a shelf or something. He's got it in the back room, or I got one of those cars or something, and it's just sitting here, and nobody ever looks at it because it's an odd name or something. But so there's just all kinds of places.
Both men encourage those unfamiliar with trains to get involved.
There's just so much to model railroading. It's unbelievable. It's a fun hobby.